I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Sudhir Kesavan, partner PwC, and Mr. Vamsi Krishna, CTO, Axis AMC. Let's hand it over to these gentlemen. Would you be kind enough to please put your hands together and welcome them?
Unfortunately, Biswa couldn't join us. He's unwell, so he had to drop off at the last minute. So it's going to be just me and Vamsi Krishna. Vamsi's just arrived, so he should be joining us in a minute. As he joins us, I'll set the conversation up. Obviously, I'm sure majority of you have heard about cloud and its impact on the industry, specifically BFSI being one of the most early adopters of new technologies. You would have heard about this. Today, we are going to talk about a step change in the conversation around cloud, right? The subjects that we're going to address is, has cloud gone beyond its data center exit movement, and how is it impacting the business itself? And as we delve into that, we'll then talk about the impact of cloud on technology strategy, and how much of the technology strategy is impactful to the business strategy. Once we cover that subject, we'll try and see, has it translated into business impact? Right? How many business value chains, how many financial services value chains has cloud made a meaningful impact to? And once we cover that, we will see what does it mean in operating parameter terms, right? Not just cost, but in terms of its impact on revenue, in terms of its impact on growth acceleration. From there, we'll plan to move on to the aspect of innovation in cloud. And within innovation, then we will cover the impact of AI and how cloud adoption and AI intersect. And as we do all of this, we'll be a bit real, right? Vamsi is going through an experience, and he's a born-in-the-heart technologist. So he's going through an experience of, where is cloud not working out as well? So we'll touch a little bit about what's not working out for cloud. In fact, use cases he's seeing where there is a case for repatriation from cloud itself, right? Yeah. So, Vamsi, just come in. And we'll try and end this conversation. If we don't run out of time, we'll try and end this conversation by focusing on some of the lessons and best practices as well. So, as I get ready to welcome Vamsi in, please give a round of applause to Vamsi. So I was just setting the context up for the conversation. And what I promised the team was we will have a mature discussion about cloud, not just about data center exits, but where is cloud impacting beyond data center exits. But before we get into that, let me ask you, you have varied experience, you have been a consultant, you have seen the innards of technology, and you're a technologist at heart. So if you could talk a little bit about how much of your business strategy and technology strategy are impacted by cloud. Let's start there, and then we'll progress the conversation.
Sure. Audible, right? Okay. I think, when the first wave of cloud started, roughly thereabouts 2012, 13, I think, was the time when on-prem to VMware to cloud sort of transition was happening. Everybody wanted to get onto the cloud bandwagon with no necessary link whatsoever to tech strategy, forget business strategy, right? Even in terms of tech strategy, the strategy was to just get their hands dirty, play around, understand what benefits cloud brings on. I think we have now moved miles from that stage where cloud was just looked at as an experimentation piece to what it can offer today. Today we're talking about cloud from a business strategy point of view, and not tech strategy alone any longer. In our own case, it's absolutely on the similar alignment. Cloud is looked at as a element of business strategy and not just tech strategy. Happy to delve more as we progress through the conversation. But I think if we have to just leave it with 2 points, cloud makes sense when you expect to scale at a pace that you can't really put a number to as you start today. You are pretty sure that you're going to go through the sine wave. That's one. Where you might have the marketplace events, likes of a Prime Day, if I have to quote one example. That's one. Second, where you want to look at cloud as a horizontal capability and not just as an infrastructure capability, right? There are two places where we see a huge amount of use cases for cloud. Maybe as we progress through the conversation, we'll delve more.
That's definitely very interesting. Perhaps you could quote a couple of examples of the impact of cloud on the business value chains itself, so that we burst this myth of data center exits, because that's really history now. So if you could give some real examples of cloud's impact on business value chains, that will bring this to life.
Absolutely. So, maybe to relate to where I come from the asset management industry. You got the market hours, you got the post-market hours. You got seasons of NFOs, and then you got the other seasons, right? Very similar to the Prime Day experience and, the Great Indian Festival-like experience, right? When there is an NFO, you suddenly have plethora of investors, many of them new, etc. And you really want them to come on to your direct assets and buy. Given a choice, would you want them to come through a Grow or a Zerodha, or would you want them to come through your own direct channels? Any asset management company would want them to come directly, right? So I know my customer that much more better. I can offer that personalized experience. This is one place where we see tremendous value. One, in handling the scale. Second, give them that sort of an experience on the asset, right? Which doesn't just keeps doing the circle, but actually gives them a fintech-like experience. The similar experience that they get on a Grow or a Zerodha is what I think cloud helps us from a back-end point of view. So this is one place. I can quote more examples, but this is an immediate example that comes to the top of my mind.
And as you have seen, actually that's a fantastic example, because it's the classic place of without cloud, the cycle time of doing that innovation or trying to use your knowledge of the customer to acquire a majority of the customer base would have been very difficult. Right?
Absolutely.
And in your role, you would be the person questioned by the business teams as to why things are not moving fast enough, why experimentation is not happening fast enough.
Absolutely. The last thing that you want is to invest on a campaign that will bring thousands of people concurrently and then realize that the asset just doesn't behave, right?
Yeah.
That's money down the drain.
Yeah. As you have gone about impacting business itself, have your KPIs for success also changed? That is the business case for what you consider success. In the old days, it used to be all about, cost plus perhaps resiliency, as well as some, out of license risks as well. But have you seen the KPIs of success and business case for the success itself change?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, if you look at the core web vitals, that's how you get discovered on Google, right? Google uses the core web vitals to present you in a certain way, right? Whether you show up on page 1 or page 2. I mean, who really has the patience to click on next page, right? I myself have never done in the time that I remember. And I'm not sure how many sitting in this room would do that. Right? So you really want to be seen on the first page, the top 3, top 4 results, etc. What matters to Google is the performance in terms of core web vitals, right? Whether it is a cumulative layout shift, it's about the largest contentful paint, the first input delay, you name it, right? Each of these core web vitals have a lot to do with performance, and that's where cloud really helps us.
Thank you for that. Continuing on the business theme, let's touch a little bit about the aspect of innovation, and how have you encouraged yourself and your teams to leverage the cloud for innovation? And I'm sure there are some experiments that haven't worked out, but the cost of those experiments are lower because you're using the cloud. Could you give some examples of how you're encouraging more experimentation, more innovation, because you're backed by a cloud capability?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think we benefit a lot from two things. One, we must be thankful to our, what our talent team, our HR team enables enables each of the functions with there is a decent learning budget, and a lot of that learning goes into areas like cloud, generative AI, whatnot. What is hot right now in the market is what this budget gets consumed into. There is a fairly decent learning budget. We invest in learning. We're not a very large team as such, right? Unlike a bank, for example. An asset management company is that much more lean in terms of tech strength, right? The department itself is not big. That also allows us to invest fairly larger per capita piece for learning. And we use that budget fairly into cloud, Gen AI, and what's hot in the market. That's one. Second is we are on AWS, largely the digital assets. Then we're also doing a re-engineering of our data warehouse. It's going native to AWS, so meaning Amazon Redshift, Glues, EMRs of the world. So the AWS partnership comes with a lot of learning resources. I'm sure any of the public clouds today come with similar capabilities. So the learning resources that are on tap are mind-boggling. Most times I feel guilty of team feel guilty of not using the resources enough, right? So I think there's always enough to learn and do on the go. We've got a small laboratory-like setup, with a few Macs and licenses procured to go there, experiment with the Lambdas, experiment with newer services. One example that I can quote is what we're doing on data. We're trying to use the visualization layer that's native to cloud, right? So all this collectively are readily on tap with the learning resources that we have, and also thanks to the partners that we work with. So that's what is available in terms of learning resources there.
Fantastic. You touched upon AI, and let's discuss a little bit about that as well, and how cloud and AI intersecting and enabling you to use. Now, obviously, you have been using AI capabilities for several years, but now as that has matured and supervised learning has matured, generative AI has come in. Could you talk a little bit about how you're looking at evaluating generative AI, or are already using it in active use cases?
Yeah, no, I won't claim we are actively using it, but then there's a lot of interest internally to both learn the large language modeling as well as experiment with the two large players, right? Both the GPT as well as Bard. What is also really helpful is the infusion of GPT capabilities in some of enterprise software, right? If you look at Microsoft today as an estate, they bring a lot of intrinsic capabilities because of their acquisition. Likewise with Google and Amazon, etc. So the first idea is to try and use what is already built rather than go try and build something on our own. So that's been the attempt so far. What's equally important for us is to do all this in a very controlled environment because of the sensitivity of information that we handle and the amount of responsibility on our shoulders around maybe not just data security. I would go all the way to say data sovereignty, right? Some of this data belongs to the country. I don't want it elsewhere. So so it's very important to do all this in a very, very controlled environment, and that's where the focus is.
Thank you for that. We spoke about some of the benefits. Let's also talk about some of the lessons learned as well in your journey towards adoption of cloud. And you obviously have a very mature perspective towards cloud. So could you talk a little bit about the lessons learned and best practices and what to watch out for as different enterprises embark on the cloud journey, because they honestly don't have the benefit of your kind of experience. So.
Sure. So I think some of the early learnings have been around adoption for the right assets and not go unilateral, right? Cloud helps when there is scale. Cloud helps when you want to test the waters, right? You want to test the waters, you have the ability to do it on the likes of a Graviton-like instance, right? For those of you who are not actively on Amazon cloud, Graviton is one of the cheapest instances out there, right? It was the cheapest families to experiment with, even before the T series came, right? That's one use case for us. What happened initially was to go over enthusiastic and try out everywhere, right? This is where you burn your fingers. You try it out on assets that do not necessarily have the scale. That's a problem. You are well off using an existing on-prem asset that you have. So this is one learning. The other learning is also about discipline, right? Cloud, as much as the benefits that they offer, cloud, if it goes misgoverned or ungoverned, if there's a word like that, I think that's a bigger problem. And that's where today, we see active articles about cloud repatriation and, going back to on-prem, etc. I don't think cloud has become weak, or cloud capabilities from the large ecosystems have been found with vulnerabilities. I don't think that's the case why repatriation happens, right? Repatriation has a lot to do with ungoverned cost structures, ungoverned costs, incurring costs, sometimes because of discipline issues. There's a lights on, lights off strategy that you need. You don't need an UAT box running 24 hours. But then people, when they adopt for the first time, or prey to these pitfalls. So I would say these have been our early learnings as well. We burnt our hands, especially me at an individual capacity, not here but elsewhere, maybe a few years back.
Thanks, Vamsi. Thank you. Time is up, so I'll take the opportunity to summarize, but thank you for this conversation. As I promised you, there's a time to reset the conversation around cloud. And as Vamsi elaborated, the impact of cloud on generating revenue, on making difference to acquiring customers is very real. It's very mature as well. Having said that, while it provides you the ability to innovate, and the cloud providers facilitate innovation to a large extent, there is a need for data governance, data sovereignty, and security aspects to be adhered to. And while you do that, you also have to now become mature about the use cases that are very fruitful if adopted through cloud. For example, if you're in a high growth space, or in a discovery-led space, or a test and learn space, where those are not applicable, perhaps there is a need for further pragmatism, whether you really need cloud. Also, you have to look towards the cases where cloud is getting ungoverned, therefore your costs become ungoverned, and then you end up with a repatriation kind of a scenario. Vamsi's advice very clearly is all good things are there, but focus on cloud governance in a very mature manner, and then your journey will be much better. So thanks a lot, Vamsi. Thank you for sharing your advice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gentlemen, would you please step forward for a picture?